Hardware is still hard. When you're trying to move it into a real place, there's a lot of processes. I think that the Thor really is that piece of hardware that has broken the threshold, is really the icebreaker for one-to-one equivalent for a lot of customers.
Welcome to Beyond the Bench. This week we have a special residential edition. We have Rob Callaghan. Do you think anybody's going to catch up to NVIDIA on the edge inference side? Elon was tweeting about AMD being good for robot humanoids. What do you see this competitive space as?
So NVIDIA is obviously clearly the leader in this space, but I think as it becomes more and more adopted, there'll be a lot of other technologies that will end up leveraging their technologies to kind of offset some of that.
It's early 26. What do you think this next year looks like?
I think that we're going to continue to see.
Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench, where we discuss taking hardware through production and the stories along the way. My name is Bill Brock, CEO of Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products.
Welcome to Beyond the Bench podcast. This week we have a special residential edition because Nashville is completely frozen over. Luckily, we have Rob Callaghan of CTI, who is very well acquainted with snow, being from Waterloo, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rob is a friend of mine. We've had multiple discussions over the last few years and recently started partnering on some stuff within the MPN network. Rob, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So for those that don't know Connect Tech, you guys have been in the NVIDIA ecosystem since Jetson was not even Jetson, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So Connect Tech we're a 40-year-old company. I think last year was our 40th anniversary, but probably the last, 15 years or so was really the focus on kind of edge AI and working with embedded NVIDIA products. So yeah, working early on in kind of the Tegra days before they announced Jetson, and through different contacts and our technology, we're one of the first partners and had the first kind of platform for the Jetson TX1 when they moved it to that system on module architecture, and have been kind of following along with kind of products and support ever since.
Why did Connect Tech get involved with NVIDIA at that time? What was the motivation? Was it a customer that had some cool AI stuff, or like AI was so different back then? But what was that initial bet?
So I guess as a quick background, Connect Tech is a embedded edge AI hardware company. That's not what we were originally, though. We really focused originally a long time ago on peripheral products, right? So serial communications, which is sort of pre-Ethernet, and then Ethernet. And around 15, 16 years ago, really kind of focused that IO specialty into small compute peripherals and embedded computers, for robotics, for industry, and worked around a lot of the open computer on module standards at the time. And one of those was kind of the Intel x86 architecture with a GPU. And as GPUs were starting to be utilized for more than just graphics, we're designing and deploying customer products around that space. And as the Tegra chip and that product line was coming to be, we worked really closely with some early companies that were making kind of modules for it before they were modules. And then as NVIDIA decided to do their own kind of system on module approach to it, it really just lined up really well for us. We already quite a background, a lot of IP around the different technologies, the different IO, the different connectivity that you really need to do anything with these platforms. So it really just fit really nicely. And, we happen to have the right kind of contacts and market experience that we had to be able to be one of those first partners.
And you've been at Connect Tech for a while, right?
Yes. Yeah. I've been with Connect Tech about half of that 40. I think it's 19 years, maybe 20, around 20 years there.
So you essentially grew up in your career as this whole market started taking hold. Like you've really seen this firsthand.
Correct. Yes. So I would say my whole career-wise, I've been in this embedded market, and it's shifted from embedded to edge to physical AI, but it's kind of the same thing. And my background is really hardware. So I started at Connect Tech working directly with our customers in a support role. Went to hardware, designed some of those first Jetson products, and now I kind of manage our product roadmap, our customer-facing teams, and our technical partners.
And what did that early design process look like with NVIDIA? I'm lapsing her name, but we met with one of your VPs at Embedded World, and she was talking to me about the really, really early days of the partnership, and that Connect Tech was the first Jetson partner, and that you're at a tier that really, like platinum or something incredibly prestigious in the NVIDIA ecosystem, but it sounded like you guys really gave them early feedback and support, and really were some of their first at volume users there.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we're an elite partner today. We were the first, I'll say the first Jetson partner for hardware. We had the first platform. Yeah, I think they announced the Jetson TX1 late 2014, and then at Embedded World, which is a big embedded show, we had the first kind of carrier platform, production level carrier platform for that. And yes, early on there was a lot to figure out. I think NVIDIA's really matured that ecosystem, but it was a new place for them, right, in that robotic space. And there are a lot of challenges, as you know, with deploying production hardware that is more than just selling silicon. So the underlying software, configuring drivers, all of those things were not really matured at that point, I would say. And as NVIDIA worked towards them, we took initiative on our end to have our own kind of ecosystem and capabilities there, which helped us really excel there.
And when you started this, you're mentioning x86 plus GPU
Right.
versus moving to the SOM, and now they have a Thor. I still talk to customers today that are doing the x86 plus GPU dance, and I mean, NVIDIA is clearly leveling up their edge GPU capabilities. When does somebody want to go from one paradigm to the other? What is the decision making process there?
It would be, it's really around, well, swap. So like size, weight, power of the end solution is a big piece. Price point is another. Some of it comes down to code base. So I mean, there are a lot of existing platforms and capabilities that are really Windows driven, Intel driven. So depending on the customer, depending on the amount of IP they have to move over, that's one of their considerations as well. But it also comes down to the capabilities. So it's hard to measure kind of an Intel level platform with a GPU versus one edge, one SOM platform that has all that included. You mentioned like the Thor, the T5000. That's actually really exciting in that I think that platform and that technology is really the icebreaker for one-to-one equivalent for a lot of customers in terms of they can get, what they're usually using a much higher powered Intel GPU platform today with, they can get the same or better in terms of power consumption or in terms of performance on the T5000 with the Blackwell, the Thor. And that's kind of really exciting to see. And that's where a lot of people are jumping. They're usually having to jump down on models or better optimize their end product in most cases. But now with Thor, they can almost one-to-one or better with this one lower power but equal performing platform.
And the Thor is also industrial certified, right? That is a new check mark on the platform. Did I make that up? I believe that's true.
Yes, and they've been that's on the NVIDIA side. They've really been kind of slowly evolving. The TX1, TX2, NX platforms are kind of smaller form factor. They're for light drones, autonomy, camera interfaces, but really moving to multi-sensor fusion, large workloads, larger models, the things you need for industrial applications, right? For autonomy, for autonomous vehicles and all the different markets. That's definitely where they're headed.
And you've got a deep experience in embedded engineering and kind of traditional bring up, and this is like a totally new world that we're finding ourselves in right now. So what are like I'm a software guy by background. We take very seriously like the reproducibility and then what the Yocto project and community brings, but I feel like that's not always the standard that people are launching on today. So like what's like the difference in the software story, maybe from like traditional embedded to this new hot robotics sector?
Well, I would say, the capabilities of the AI and the technology there, and the software packages you're able to utilize there are great. But at the end of the day, it's, hardware is still hard. When you're trying to move
Yeah.
it into a real place, there's a lot of processes like us in the embedded space have been dealing with for quite a while. They're still there. I think the big change is the capabilities in which you're able to utilize at the edge, like the improvement in technology from the AI inference standpoint, from the power consumption standpoint. Those are huge improvements, but the challenges in the underlying systems and processes all still exist. They're all still there.
Right.
I would say that really has remained unchanged, but the value add that you can get from moving and deploying these platforms is really at a much higher state than it was previous as NVIDIA kind of improved their whole line there.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the customer journey? And somebody comes to you, they've got are you working with like early stage startup or very mature, like defense oriented? And like do you have to walk them through the product development process, or they come to you with like a working POC in a lab? What's the range there?
It's definitely a mix, I would say, but I guess, when it comes to the different decision making factors. So for a lot of the new companies that we like startups, those kind of things that we deal with or used to deal with traditionally, their product is usually like a model, the AI, the application layer. So a lot of our customers that are looking for a product or to roll some of our services and customization into their product, they want something that just works. They have their product, whether it be that model or whether it be the optimization within their product of the application.
Mhm.
They want something that's reliable, that works, and they don't want to have to dive into the driver development, the BSPs, and that's where they leverage a Connect Tech. So of course we make hardware. It's designed to be quality, reliable, built to production, but it's all that underlying support from the software side that we also provide that a lot of
Mhm.
our customers aren't looking for. So time to market is key, especially with a lot of the startups, and that's what we provide there. With the larger companies or the larger, more mature product lines, markets, they're making decisions of make buy, so that they're really, they have a limited set of resources. They may want to take them elsewhere. We can work with them there. And that's sometimes the decision they're making. In any case, it's time to market that really drives a lot of those decisions and a lot of the customers we work with.
What are some of the biggest gating items that can impact the time to market? Like the big whoopsie or surprise that the customers are walking into?
I guess a lot of our customers can obviously we'll focus on NVIDIA, but this is kind of true for any of the architectures you could work with in this space. Is that getting something up on a lab bench, getting a proof of concept. There's a lot of resources there. NVIDIA especially has an entire library of resources for you to get up and running. It's moving to production that is kind of that hurdle. Like there's one thing when you have a lab and perhaps you have 10, 20 POCs that you're working with. Well, now you have to deploy that in hundreds. Have you thought about flashing these? Have you thought about how you're going to manage these in the field? Have you thought about all the different factors in terms of ensuring that this stays reliable and accessible as you scale? Those usually become the big hurdles that aren't always considered at first, especially with kind of bleeding edge technology. It's like, this is awesome, let's put this out there. It's like, wait a minute, how do we deal with 100 of these instead of five?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had somebody reach out to me just last night, and they were like, "We have 5 to 10 units. We're going to 10x it this year, and I think we need some help." Like, yeah, yeah, exactly. And I feel like that that is when it really starts to break. Is when you're having to do all these processes in a manual mode, and then okay, what does provisioning look like? What does automation look like? What is security? And the R&D is like that's a problem for another day. But the PO comes and it's time to go, and yeah, it's either a couple months, a couple years, depending on the supporting technology and what they need. You're chief product officer now, and you joined Connect Tech. What was your original role?
So originally, I started right out of school. So
Oh my
long time with
god,
Connect Tech. So it's been fun
that
to
isn't
grow.
far.
Yeah, fun to grow with the company itself, right? So we were a much different company when I started. We were in the teens in terms of how many people we were there, and I started in support. So I directly dealt with our customer base and serving them from a technical. Connect Tech has always been big on engineer to engineer support, and I was in that role. So I learned a lot about our customer base, the embedded market, the players in those space, what they expected. As we grew and expanded there, I continued to work with that team, grow that team myself. Moved into kind of hardware design, where I spent a good amount of time kind of doing the hands-on work of designing various hardware platforms, both custom and off-the-shelf kind of products for Connect Tech there, which was a lot of fun. And then as we scaled, I kind of stepped out of that role and more into defining and launching our product line, as well as our customer facing teams and kind of expanding our ecosystem as well. And those three things have been exciting to be a part of. It's always been good and to watch we're still a relatively small company, I'd say. Say we started at 15 people when I started there, and we're approaching kind of 10x that, I'd say. So it's been an exciting path that way. But I've always been connected to our customers. That's kind of been our my big focus throughout, and ensuring that rolls into everything we do.
And how much of the people at Connect Tech have direct background in engineering? Is it 50-50? Is it 90-10?
It's a good question, and I think the number changes, but it's definitely over 50%. We have quite a large
Yeah.
technical staff. We also manufacture, so that's another kind of difference for us, is that
Oh, cool.
we're not a design house. We're also manufacturing everything in house, on location as well. So we've got a lot of technical staff in the back as well. Definitely very engineer focused. Our founder was an engineer. He just recently retired. Our CTO is now in that position, so still kind of engineer led and technically focused, and kind of will continue to be that way.
And so is the manufacturing like a separate business unit entirely, or is it all within the same company?
Oh no, it's all the same building, and that's a big advantage for us as well. If you consider, especially working with early stage custom designs, we're not working with any third party manufacturing. So when a customer works with us, day one, we're scheduling, not only the design process and working with them, but when we're going to build it, when we're going to run it from hardware, where the hardware engineering hat, like my product, I can watch it on the line. I can be right there if we have any problems. I can pog the line. So it's all in one place, and we take full advantage of that control. And it's a big kind of value add for us as well.
And what is the final product that the customer's getting? Is it like NVIDIA Jetson on a CTI carrier, or are there like straight up humanoids walking out of the building?
It would be the hardware, so the Edge AI
Yeah.
hardware platform. Now that varies
Okay.
everything from, traditionally for a long time, Connectech just kind of did the carrier boards that mated with the NVIDIA Jetson, but with all the software value add we have, it's usually kind of that integration. So it's either sort of what I'll call a board level integration, where you've got the module, you've got perhaps the thermal, the carrier, everything you need to sort of integrate into your humanoid, perhaps. But we also have full mechanical engineering, thermal design, so it could also be a system you're mounting right to the back of your rugged vehicle as well. But in the end, it's kind of that compute hardware. It's that edge inference
Yeah.
hardware and the underlying software that we're delivering.
Since Thor has been launched, what has been the change? Like, do you have customers that are rapidly adopting that technology? Is it, purchase orders are flying off the shelf? Are people still evaluating it? Like, how are you seeing this increased capability being applied right now to next generation products?
So I guess it would be market dependent, but what we're seeing is a lot of adoption. And I think it's really that I think that the Thor really is that piece of hardware that has kind of broken the threshold that some of these companies, especially looking for things like full autonomy. We have customers that used to always have kind of ECU plus, inference vision for autonomous vehicles, now being able to unify that into one compute solution, right? So we've got customers doing that. They're already going into kind of, perhaps not full production, but early production, given the maturity of the product. But a lot of interest around the T5000, the Thor, and I think that really stems from its capabilities. It's really jumped into that realm where they no longer need to offset some of their capabilities with other platforms. They're able to unify it all on one, and that becomes very appealing to a lot of customers for many reasons, as you'd imagine.
And what's the breakdown between like your customer base? How much of your customer base is in actual like autonomous solutions or robotics versus maybe something vision only or just general purpose GPU?
So I'd say a majority are in robotics. It depends how you define it, right? I guess NVIDIA defines everything as a robot. I mean,
Yeah,
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 Connectech kind of focuses on kind of four core markets that we see a lot of growth in, especially with the kind of the level of product that we design and deploy. So it's, robotics, kind of key robotics. So that could be everything from humanoids to autonomous delivery vehicles, to vision system platforms, those kind of things. Industrial automation, which is kind of more the factory. So you got your factory
yeah.
floor, your autonomous forklifts, your arm, manipulator type environments. Agriculture, construction, and mining, and that's a really big emerging platform and market for us. In that, everything from the like a traditional automotive market is now moving to these heavy equipment manufacturers. You can imagine all the applications if you can kind of create autonomy or just AI kind of assistance within the farming space, within construction, within mining. So that's been a really big one. And then aerospace and defense would be the last one that we're really focusing on as well.
Talk to me about mining. I feel like that's such a big emergent industry. We actually had I might have mentioned to you a while back another friend of the pod, Misty West. They're huge into mining technology, but I did not. It's a whole new world to me, and I think it's something that most people don't think about. But like the Davos and these like so many leaders are talking about rare earth minerals being a gating factor, and just feels like there's so much technology and investment being poured into mining right now, but you don't see it in your hometown. It's not as relatable.
Yes, and I guess the way you can relate to it is exactly those, the minerals that are critical for the technology. So it's sort of hand in hand, right? But it's also a market that there are a lot of good, solid reasons why you should be adopting AI within, right? The safety is a huge one. Some of these vehicles are absolutely massive. The people, like getting the right people to be able to operate some of this machinery is difficult. And not only is there safety issues, but just, some of these remote areas become difficult to manage when it comes to workforce. So the ability to add autonomous fleets of mining trucks, automate, the safety aspect of the vehicle. So there might still be a driver, but now they have an augmented view of everything around them. The controllers at the base station are able to know where everything is, and there's a lot of big players coming up with a lot of really cool applications. And then lastly, the other part of this is there's often it's often really difficult to get, network cloud
Yeah.
connectivity in some of these remote areas, right? So that you really, one from a safety aspect, and two just from a connectivity standpoint, you need that processing and that decision making to happen on the device, whether the device be a, massive mining truck or a base station somewhere. It still needs to happen there, and that's kind of a big reason why they're looking to adopt that as quickly as they can.
And so are you seeing this more augmenting other large heavy equipment, or are there humanoids that are actually going into mines? Like that's kind of the sci-fi direction. But like,
Yeah, no,
what's the breakdown?
yeah. Right now, it's a lot of the vehicle side of things and fleet management. Those would be the
Yeah.
two. And then, of course, there's just recently announcements from a few of the construction players with AI assistants, and those are leveraging kind of the very modern LLMs, VLMs, to be able to create and lower kind of the operating bar in a way for an operator. You now could add AI assistants to vehicles that are remote. So when you're not sure how to do something, you're not opening and flipping a manual. You're actually talking to someone that happens to be a locally run AI that can run you through a process or tell you data, or if you're stuck somewhere, it's kind of like the expert in a box, which is an interesting application that's just leveraged from the latest open models.
What's the most impressive application or most surprising application that you've seen that you can share?
In that space specifically.
Doesn't have to be mining, but just like something going off the Connect Tech line. You're like, holy shit, that's going into. I can't believe it.
Um, so I guess with the big buzz around humanoid robotics, that would be kind of a big one for me. Is that seeing what companies are able to utilize not only the technology but now the emerging VLAs and other models. That's an exciting thing for me to witness and kind of see what customers are really doing with this, right? And like I said, robotics is very hard. There's still all that safety and process aspects of it, but just the ability to no longer just be reactionary, but to also plan and think ahead in an AI model will kind of change the way that's progressing. And there's all these companies and a lot of attention on it, but just seeing the leaps and bounds we're able to accomplish quickly is sort of exciting.
So the Thor is giving us the capability to where it's, we're all using LLMs all day, every day, different aspects of work. But the Thor is actually giving comparable performance to where you can get those types of models on the go. Like you don't need to talk to the Claude server or whatever.
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly the point, is that like, the Thor and even the Orin, like the NVIDIA high AGX platforms are not only able to kind of take in and process all the sensor data, they're now able to run high billion parameter models. The VLA aspect, the video aspect of it is huge, right? AI applications that we work with in terms of the edge involve cameras. I mean, maybe more than just cameras, but there's always vision involved. So to be able to utilize open models that can make decisions based on the real-time incoming video data, that kind of changes everything. And that's been kind of the most exciting thing. And obviously that's quite current, right? There's a lot of companies that are just basically companies like Physical Intelligence and Skilled AI, and there's a number
Yes.
of others that are just focusing on the model. And that's the reason, is that the technology is really caught up to the point where they can run these models on the edge, in the robot, on location, and that kind of changes everything.
Do you think anybody's going to catch up to NVIDIA on the edge inference side? Do you think that there's any other up and coming? I know that like Elon was tweeting about AMD being good for robot humanoids, but I just personally have no idea. What do you see this competitive space as?
I think that we'll see it mature. So NVIDIA is obviously clearly the leader in this space. They
Yeah.
invested very early, the $0 billion market. Like before it was a thing, they were investing in it. They saw, Jensen and the early Jetson team in general really saw a lot of possibility there. And because of that, they're very much ahead in that space. But I think as it becomes more and more adopted, more popular, there's a lot of different capabilities. NVIDIA is kind of the one jack of all trades platform, but there'll be a lot of other technologies that will either be alongside the NVIDIA platform. Like I don't really think they'll offset it in a way, but it's more a matter of depending on what you need and your power. There's all these other, AMD, Qualcomm. There's quite a few that I think will end up leveraging their technologies to kind of offset some of that. Where maybe NVIDIA is the main brain here, but you'll be able to utilize some of these other technologies to really advance robotics.
Do you think that NVIDIA is long for, this might be too spicy for the pod, but do you think that they are long for selling units of the Jetson themselves, or do you think they're more interested in being the focal point for the GPU and training? I mean, they're obviously crushing on the latter right now. Do you think the hardware sales on the Jetson are strategically like part of it, or do you think it's more supporting the core business of the training?
I think that they are long on the robotics and edge side. I work very closely with that team from the very beginning. It's something they've invested every year in. even when it really wasn't showing even close to the ROI of the database side of things. I think, Jensen and the NVIDIA team there really do see kind of physical AI, robotics as that
Yeah.
next frontier. The next thing going this way is that space. They've invested heavy in it early, and I don't see that changing. I think they're going to definitely double down in that space. And we're going to see that kind of come to light with the heavy adoption of robotics everywhere.
What do you think this next year looks like? It's early 26. What do you think we're going to look like? Sitting here in December, we'll have you back. What do you think this year's going to be like?
I think that we're going to continue to see. So one thing I can tell you, just in from at least from the Connect Tech in my experience, is that a number of our customers have been doing really cool things, but none of them are kind of in a full out. Not none of them, but not many of them are in a full production state.
Yeah.
Over the last year or so, this is what we're starting to see, and I think that's what we're going to see is that we see a lot of cool applications, a lot of startups. I think we're going to start seeing that deployed in all these markets, and we're going to see these as real products you can buy. I think NVIDIA is really putting a big push on safety because that's a big critical element and a hurdle in robotics. I think we'll see a lot of advances there. The open models that both NVIDIA and everyone else are putting out are going to only advance that further. But I think what we're going to see is we'll have more real world product examples of these large models and AI within things that we can see in the marketplace today.
What is, in your mind, a scaled fleet for these? Because it's very different than consumer electronics. Full on brain. But you think multiple deployments in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like, what's the scale that you were like, okay, these guys are really rocking?
It would be that, I think, like the thousands, really. Like large robotic fleets are hundreds sometimes, right? When you talk about
Yeah.
some of these really production level environments, but it depends on the market as well. I mean, drone deployments are only increasing, and managing that is definitely a higher number. But I think it would be within that, hundreds, perhaps thousands, would be a big uptick in terms of one particular fleet.
Awesome. Well, Rob, this was amazing. We're gonna see you at GTC. Go find Connect Tech at GTC. They'll be there. They'll be very, very busy. Anything that you guys are excited to show at GTC, or anything top of mind?
Yeah, I mean, of course, for us, we want to ensure we have the latest platforms for the markets I suggested in Thor. That's what we're looking on. We've got a really big product line there, and then everything around safety. So functional safety continues to be a critical part of kind of the next evolution of that physical AI. We'll have products and solutions around that. And then lastly, one of the new initiatives on our end that I'll quickly pitch here is we've invested in AI applications and team. So we have an AI team. We kind of have a brand spinoff there with CTE AI Labs. And we're doing a lot of really cool things with these open models and blueprints that NVIDIA provides, and showing how you can actually leverage them in production. So we'll have running real-time examples of that at this show, and I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. Well, go check them out at GTC, and website is connecttech.com, right? Not CTI.com.
You got it.
Yeah, connecttech.com. Fantastic hardware, great people, and yeah, Rob, thanks for coming on, and we'll pick it up soon.
Appreciate the conversation. Thanks.
All right, everybody, just a quick reminder, this podcast is presented by Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products.